Hi, I'm Matthew, and I'll be teaching you a quick lesson on square roots today. It's probably the best to understand the square roots as the opposite operation of taking squares. For example, let's say that you have number 3 and you're taking square of it. That means that you are multiplying that number by itself twice. 3 times 3 is 9. So you take square of number 3, you get to that number 9. Square root, on the other hand, just for your info, this sign is called radical sign. That number under the radical is called radicand, and that 2 is called index. We're taking a square root, that's why that number 2 is 4. When you take a square root of number 9, it is asking what is a number that when you take a square of it, meaning that you're multiplying that same number by itself twice, that you get 9. What is that number? Well, as you can see from above, 3 times 3, 3 squared is 9. So we know that square root of 9 is 3. You may have noticed that I did not write the number 2. When you're taking square root, you don't have to write 2. When there is no index, you assume that you're taking a square root. Just make sure when you write your index, you write it small right beside the radical sign. Because when you write it big in front of the radical sign, that means something else totally different. So make sure you write a small 2 slightly above, but right beside the radical sign. And another thing you may have noticed, especially if you learn the negative integers, you may wonder, well, isn't negative 3 also a square root of 9? Because when you multiply two negative integers, the negatives becomes positive. When you take a square of negative 3, yes, you do get 9. But when you just see a number under the radical sign, that means that we only want the positive square root of it. There is a time that you do have to take in the negative square root as well, but that's for another video, and feel free to check that out later. Let's do a bit of practice. What is a square root of 25? Well, it is asking what is a positive number that you multiply by itself twice that becomes 25. If you're good at multiplication, you might recognize right away that 5 times 5 is 25. But if not, that's okay, and we can just work our way up the perfect squares. 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 4 is 16, 5 times 5 is 25. Yes, so it is 5. Then what about this? What is a square root of 100? Well, what is a number that when you take a square, that becomes 100? Well, 10 times 10 is 100, so square root of 100 is 10. Okay, hopefully you see the pattern. When you take this number and take square, then you get the radicand, the number under the radical sign. Again, when you take this number and when you square it, you get radicand, the number under the radical sign. How about this? Can you express 4 using a radical sign? Well, hopefully you see that from the pattern on the left side, 4 is equal to the square root of which number? 16. Okay. What about 7? Can you express that using a radical sign? Well, square of 7 is 49. So 7 is equal to the square root of 49. And how about this? What is a square root of 5? Do you know a number that when you take a square of, that you get 5? Well, I'm sure there is a number, but we can't think of it right away, right? Because 5 is not a perfect square, meaning a square of a natural number. So in order to accurately get this number, we need to use a calculator. So when you plug in square root of 5, you will get 2.236. And it goes on. So it is true that we need a calculator to get the exact value of the root 5, but can we still estimate it without a calculator? Yes, we can, and this is how you do it. Let's estimate square root of 5. First, you need to find a perfect square that 5 sits in between. What I mean by that is 1 is equal to the square root of 1, 2 is equal to square root of 4, 3 is equal to square root of 9, 4 is equal to square root of 16. Now, where does the square root of 5 go in between? Well, you can see that square root of 5 must be a number in between 2 and 3. So what we do next is, on the number line, we put 2 and 3, and we also express that using a radical sign, and 3 is square root of 9. And we're going to divide that section into 5 subsections. Why 5? Because 9 minus 4 is 5. And you'll see what I mean by that. Okay? We're going to treat this as square root of 5, square root of 6, square root of 7, square root of 8. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 subsections. So square root of 5, the number that we wanted to estimate, is sitting about 1/5 way from 2 to 3. Meaning that square root of 5 is approximately 2 and 1/5. That in decimal, because 1/5 is 0.2, is 2.2. So we're estimating that square root of 5 is roughly 2.2. And if you actually use a calculator, the exact number you get, as I showed you earlier, is 2.236. So it is pretty close. So we have made a good estimation. Okay, let's estimate one more number. How about square root of 30? What would the square root of 30 approximately be? Well, as we did before, we're going to find the two numbers that square root of 30 sits in between. And you may recognize right away, but I'm going to pretend that I didn't. So I'm going to write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And 1 is equal to square root of 1. 2 is equal to square root of 4. 3 is equal to square root of 9, 4 is equal to square root of 16, 5 is equal to square root of 25, 6 is equal to square root of 36, 7 is equal to square root of 49, 8 is equal to square root of 64. So now, where does square root of 30 sits in between? Well, square root of 30 must be in between 5 and 6. So as our next step, on the number line, we're going to write 5, and this will be our 6. I'm going to write that 5 is equal to square root of 25, and 6 is equal to square root of 36. And now, 36 minus 25 is 11, so I'm going to divide this into 11 subsections. So starting from here, square root of 26, square root of 27, square root of 28, square root of 29, that will be where square root of 30, our number will be. And that will be square root of 31, square root of 32, square root of 33, square root of 34, square root of 35. And our square root of 30 is right here. And that will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th way across 11 sections. Okay, that means that our square root of 30 is approximately 5 and 5/11. And because 5/11 is a little hard to convert to decimals, I'm going to estimate that is roughly the same as 5/10, and that in decimal is 5.5. Remember, we're not trying to get the exact value of root 30, and we need a calculator for that. But when you're estimating, it's okay to round up and round down the numbers. So our estimation is that square root of 30 is roughly 5.5. But if you use a calculator, you will see that square root of 30 is 5.477 and goes on. So our estimation is pretty close, and this is how you do it. Hopefully this video helped you understand the square roots better, and if it did, please hit that like button and subscribe, and check out my other videos as well. I'm Matthew, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!